Prize Podcast, a podcast about linguistic discrimination.
I'm Carrie Gillen.
And I'm Megan Figueroa. And happy 2021.
Yeah, happy 2021. Woo!
It's a new year.
We survived 2020. 2021 is shaping up to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Canada's having vaccine supply issues, and hardly anyone is vaccinated, and yeah, it's upsetting.
I always expect so much better of Canada. I'm like...
I mean, to be fair, Canada bought 9 times as many vaccines as was necessary to vaccinate the entire population.
Whoa.
So that, we would all be vaccinated, and then also could donate those vaccinations, whatever was not needed, to other countries later. But the problem is, so far only 2 vaccines have been okayed, Moderna and Pfizer. And Pfizer's having supply issues, and Moderna might be too. And so, yeah, we need a 3rd vaccine or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am super grateful and lucky that I got my first dose. I guess it's, been 10 days or so now. I still can't believe I got it before my parents. I mean, the whole thing is just so strange. So strange. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm grateful because me getting it helps everyone, right? So when you can get it. Don't feel like, I shouldn't get it because I'm not over 65 or whatever. But it's just so strange, the rollout.
And it's just so haphazard, right? Like Arizona has made this decision, and other states have made a different decision. And
right.
I mean, there's cases to be made for every single decision. Like some countries even have decided to give it to younger people first because they're the people running around spreading it more. I'm not an epidemiologist, so I don't know which way is right. It just seems like every decision could be right or could be very wrong. And so I'm just like, just hurry up so that order doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of epidemiologists, I was thinking yesterday, what a sexy job to have right now.
Well, and also very tiring because everyone thinks they know
I know,
your
but
job.
I'm so grateful to them. It's like all of a sudden people know who epidemiologists or what an epidemiologist is.
That's so true.
It's like they've been putting the work in all this time, and anyway, shout out to epidemiologists.
Yeah, and so speaking of sexy jobs.
Look at you trying to do some segues like I do.
We speak to a lexicographer, which I love that word. I think it's such a fun word.
It's a good word.
It's fun to say. And also, before we get to that, Merriam-Webster added 520 new words to their dictionary this year. From ASMR to silver fox.
Whoa. Okay.
Yep.
If you were to put someone's picture next to Silver Fox, who would it be?
Anderson Cooper.
Me too! That's what I was thinking. I just wanted to shout out Anderson Cooper for
I
don't
Fox. Know who else has been called a silver fox, honestly. Like, he's the only person I know of, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, so great. 520... Do they usually add that many? Do you know?
I have no idea. It's too bad we can't ask our today's guest. From a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Huh. So what else do they add?
Yeah, so here's some other interesting things. And these ones are all related to what happened in the since 2019 to 2021. So long hauler, a person who experiences one or more long-term effects following initial improvement or recovery from a serious illness, such as COVID-19.
Wait, do you think anyone will ever use that for anything besides COVID-19?
Yeah, if there's similar effects, yes, for sure.
Huh. In my mind, it's totally just related to COVID-19.
Yeah, so far, but any disease technically could. I think hepatitis A, you can have chronic hepatitis A, and when I think about it, that's long haul, basically. We just never called it that. Why not be a long hauler for a hepatitis A or whatever? Huh, it's not how we use it yet, but I think we will.
Right. Yeah.
Pod and bubble, a small group of people, family members, friends, coworkers, or classmates who regularly interact closely with one another, but with few or no others in order to minimize exposure.
Do you think that's going to last?
I don't know. I mean, if COVID does, then yes, and COVID's lasting because we got these new variants, and the vaccine's not as good against at least the South African one.
Right.
Bubble also gained an additional meaning, an area within which sports teams stay isolated from the general public during a series of scheduled games. I think that one might not survive just because it's very specific, but I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
That is very specific, yeah.
Wet market, a market that sells perishable items such as fresh meat and produce, and sometimes live animals, which are often slaughtered inside. You've never heard wet market?
No.
That's where COVID-19 probably came from, was a wet market in China. Yeah. Like, where have you been?
Where have I been, Canadian?
Yes.
I have been trying to just stay above water. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay, cool. I mean, not cool, but I learned something.
There's been a lot of racist chatter about wet markets and how gross they are, but wet market is just the inverse of a dry goods store.
Yeah.
Like, sure, I'm not super comfortable with live animals being slaughtered, but, like, that's on me. That's not on the fact that wet markets exist. Yeah. But, like, not all wet markets have that anyway, and literally all they mean is the inverse of dry goods. So.
Right. Racism.
Yeah, racism. Yep. Speaking of racism, one of them that was added was digital blackface.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I think more people need to know what that is. Oh, tell us what it is.
Yeah, just in case. Yeah. The use by white people of digital depictions of black or brown people or skin tones, especially for the purpose of self-representation or self-expression. Often it involves using reaction GIFs that are of black people, but it can be other. Like, it's a broader thing than just that.
Once it was pointed out to me, digital blackface, I one of my favorite GIFs to use was Titus from...
I know, I love him so much.
The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. Yeah, bye, Titus. I still love you.
I love Titus so much.
No, it's yeah. Okay, so what's one that... I mean, we talk about this with our guest today a little bit, but what's one that seems like it would have been in there a long time ago for you, but it's just making it now?
That's a good question. Yeah, because we do just explain why it takes so long for things to get into here. So let's see. Maybe flex. An act of bragging or showing off. Seems kind of old to me. I don't know. It's hard to really remember time.
Yes, it is. Time and space are fake. You know, I mean, you've only told me a few of them, but Silver Fox kind of surprises me.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's been around for a long time. Basically, ever since Anderson Cooper has been on the air, at least as far as I was aware of him as a human being.
Okay, I just had to Google this. I just have to say this is really cool. They added the @ symbol.
Yes! Yeah, that's true. I like that.
That's really, really cool.
But also, like, that's not something I ever would have expected.
That's a sexy addition. I love that. Like, using... Okay, so @ informal, to respond to, challenge, or disparage the claim or opinion of someone, usually used in the phrase, don't @ me, with the @ symbol. That's so cool.
It leads exactly directly into our interview.
Yes. With
Corey Stamper, who is a lexicographer, but also, crucially, is in this this new Netflix show, The History of Swearing. And so we talk a lot about lexicography and stuff, but also a lot about swearing. So cover your ears.
This is not safe for work. Not safe for
not
work.
Safe for work.
And yeah, exactly. And oh my gosh, please go watch History of Swear Words on Netflix.
It is charming.
Fucking fantastic.
I never expected to think that, but it's so very charming.
I know. Nick Cage, this is your national treasure. It wasn't the Declaration of Independence. It was you all along. It was you.
Like Nick Cage. That we found along the
way. Yeah, exactly. Well, enjoy.
Like this show and want to make your own? Let me tell you about Anchor. It's free, and they have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And now you can even add any song from Spotify directly to your episodes. The possibilities are endless for what you can create, whether it's music analysis, your own radio show, or something the world's never heard before. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. So today we're very excited to have Corey Stamper, who is a lexicographer, author, speaker, speechwriter, and freelance lexicographer for American English at Cambridge University Press. She's also the author of Word by Word, The Secret Life of Dictionaries. And she's also one of the talking heads on the history of swearing on Netflix, which is one of the reasons we wanted to have her on. We wanted to have her on for other reasons too, but it was a nice time. So welcome, Corey.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I just gotta say that the title of your book is one of probably the sexiest thing that's ever been said about dictionaries. Like, to think about a secret life of them.
I know, it does make it seem like really, Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. But
yeah.
I mean, sometimes it approaches that in its weird complexity, but yeah.
So tell us, what is lexicography?
So lexicography is the art or craft or process of writing and editing dictionaries, or of studying how dictionaries are written. So I'm a lexicographer. I write dictionaries. And when I say I write dictionaries, my job is to do the definitions and the usage information that goes with them. There are other specialist lexicographers who do things like they only do pronunciation, or they only do the etymology, that we call them etymologists. And so I'm a general editor. That means that I do all the non-technical stuff.
So when you say usage, that's when I perhaps go on to merriam-webster.com, put a word in, and then I see a thing that says, like, a usage note or something considered vulgar or something, or offensive.
Right, yeah. So those are the usage notes that we write. And we also write sort of longer ones. So there's longer usage paragraphs. Lots of dictionaries use them at words that are particularly finicky. So words like irregardless gets a big usage paragraph. And there's a couple of really offensive slurs that have usage paragraphs explaining why we put one there.
Now I'm wondering, and I know that this is silly, and it's probably the answer is no, but does moist have a usage note?
No, it doesn't. But you know what? I feel like it would serve dictionaries well to at least acknowledge that people say they hate it so much. It's a funny thing to me because I think of all the words to hate, there are so many other words to hate. And I get that, like, the phonotactics of moist really irritate folks. But when people are like, I can't stand the word moist, I'm thinking, really? Like, there are so many other words that I can't stand for other reasons. But if moist is the hill you want to die on, go for it.
Do you think it's the oi sound? Is that what you think is the
I think
bit?
I think it's the oi and the s. I think I think it's just it seems to be like the Platonic ideal of every phonological feature in the wrong order to upset people.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm one of those people that's not bothered by the word moist at all.
Me neither.
And I have, like, sound issues. Like, there are certain sounds that I cannot tolerate, but yeah, moist is fine. But I wondered if it was partially semantic too, like what it means, if that's part of the reason or no. I don't know. It's always fascinated me that this word bothers so many people.
I don't know if it's semantic so much as it is the pragmatics of it. Like, moist gets applied to things like towelettes, and moist is used of bodily fluids, right?
Yeah,
so I think
exactly.
that, like, you've got the weird phonetics of moist, and then you add it to, like, moist towelette. And I actually saw a linguist I follow on Twitter this week retweeted something. He was like, all right, moist lovers, are you happy now? And someone had described a cake as being damp, and he was like, are you happy? Do you see what you've done now?
No! Yes,
Yeah.
reclaim moist.
Yes. Yeah, that's wrong. Just wrong. Just wrong.
Yeah, you do not want your cake to be damp at all. That's
No,
it's like
no. Yeah, so gross.
wow.
So gross.
Okay, so speaking of the meaning of words and all of this, why did you decide to become a lexicographer?
Well, it started as an accident, and then it sort of blossomed into me finding that this was a thing I was really good at. So I went to school and I got a degree in medieval studies. So I'm the nerd that has all of the dead languages in their back pocket. And, after I graduated with my incredibly useful degree, I thought, well, I've done editing and copy editing as part of my work study, so maybe I'll try and get a job in publishing. And I happened to answer, this is so long ago, I answered a paper want ad in the local newspaper, right? There are going to be listeners that don't even know what that is. But
true. Yeah, I barely do.
In olden times, when you wanted a job, the newspaper would print job listings. And so I applied for a job that was, all it said was a editorial assistant at a reference company. And I thought, okay. And it wasn't until I got called for the interview that I found out it was for Merriam-Webster, which is a big dictionary publisher in America. I went in, I got the job because I know dead languages, and I think they were thinking, well, eventually we'll have her work with the etymologist to sort of, just as a junior etymologist.
Because of your medieval background. Right. Your medieval
right.
studies.
And also medieval background,
sure.
Yeah. So when I got there, part of the training that you have to go through to write dictionaries is because it's not an academic pursuit. It's really it's a craft. It's a thing you have to learn how to do. And so every editor, and every lexicographer that I know has had to go through a training period where you basically come in with all of your knowledge of English rules of grammar and rules of style, and you basically lay them all out on the table, and the senior editor takes them all and crumples them into a ball and says, that's not what English is. Your job as a lexicographer is to describe the English language as it is currently used, not as, grammarians or style guides or teachers think it should be used. And so you go through basically relearning grammar, because you're now the person who has to decide what part of speech something is. And that means that you can't say, well, good can't be an adverb because my teacher said it couldn't be an adverb. But people say, I'm good all the time. So now it has to be an adverb. So you relearn grammar, and then you learn how to actually write a dictionary definition. It's a form of writing that is heavily rule-bound and really arcane and really weird. And after I went through the training, I was immediately put on a defining project to work on the addenda to Merriam-Webster's Unabridged Dictionary. And I loved it. It was the sort of thing where the deeper I got into how each word is used and sort of analyzing the use and doing, some discourse analysis on all of these little written bits of language that we collect, it just was like, oh, I really like this. I enjoy this a lot. So I stayed a general editor. I didn't do much etymology at all. And that was kind of the trajectory of it. It's the type of job, I think, where within like 6 months whether you're going to be able to survive doing it or not. Because not only is the work really intense, but the atmosphere of most dictionary companies is also very intense. Like at Merriam-Webster, there was a rule of silence on the editorial floor that had been lifted a couple of years before I came on, but still, nobody talked on the editorial floor. If you had any kind of conversation with people, it was always at sort of this sotto voce whisper, or you sent notes, or you sent emails. You never had any, if you spoke in a conversational tone, people would just lose their minds. So I knew pretty much, I don't know, within 6 to 8 months that this was this was a job I could do. And that's basically what I've been doing since.
I think I remember you talking about the quiet thing on the floor in your previous podcast, which I've already...
Yeah.
What was that called again?
Fiat Lex.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember being so fascinated by that, like, oh, they're like monks.
Yeah, oh, it's true. I mean, so James Murray, who was the original editor of the big old dictionary that came to be called the OED, called his office where he wrote the scriptorium. And so, like, that just set it up for generations of lexicographers afterwards. There is this very weird sort of, we are doing something in service to a higher power, and that higher power is English. And yeah, it gets weird. It's a weird thing.
I like how you called it a craft, because I think that so many people just have no idea what lexicography is. I think it's getting better because I think history of swear words is going to, like, rocket the field into at least rocket. I saw it on Netflix. It was like number 8, like, of the top 10.
Something like that. Yeah, I haven't even checked, but yeah, my adult daughter, who cares about such things, occasionally texts me, and she's like, "You're in the top 10." I'm like, "What are we talking about? Top 10 of what?" Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's doing so great. And I mean, I was one of the people on Twitter who was like, "Oh my God, now I can kind of point to something when people are like, what do you do?" Even though it's not quite what I do, but I can be like, this is like linguistics, or it is linguistics. So to call it a craft and I just think it's great, because I know that as a kid, I would have loved to know that lexicography was a thing, even though you can't really, like, major in it. But I was the kid, the nerd that loved words so much that I was like, I'll just study English. But that's not what English majors do, I found out quickly.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I think part of why I loved medieval studies was because it was all, this sort of stuff that I ended up doing at Merriam-Webster, just with dead languages. So, I spent so much time with Latin and Old English and Old Norse. And I mean, most of my work in my undergrad was translation based. And so when you're doing translations, you're doing exactly the same thing you do with lexicography. You are looking at context and you're searching for the right words to communicate what this word means with the right register, the right tone, the right context. So yeah, I was going to get an English major. Well, originally I was going to get a pre-med major, and then I was like, well, I'll get an English major. But then I had one class that was on the Icelandic medieval family saga, and I was like, oh no, I want to do this. This is terrible and weird, and I love it. I want to do this.
That's beautifully nerdy.
Why are you interested in the history of swearing in particular?
Swearing is one of those things that, for a long time, and even now, there are lots of people who feel like it shouldn't be tracked, it shouldn't be entered into dictionaries, it shouldn't be studied because it's taboo. But the things that we think are taboo and the changes in what is taboo over the centuries really tells you a lot about sort of the mores of society. And I don't know, I really like studying words that are, I like studying taboo words because it's like a puzzle. If they don't get printed as much, then you have to really kind of go through things like, okay, well, I'm going to go through movie transcripts to see how fuck is used, or I'm going to go through, rap lyrics to look at the evolution of the word bitch. And that kind of stuff is so interesting to me because it's not, I think a lot of people think that dictionaries should do track higher level literary forms, right? That's why people get upset when they find words like irregardless in the dictionary, because that shouldn't be given any sort of imprimatur. You shouldn't be able to look it up. It shouldn't exist. And taboos are the same way. Taboo words are always people, I tell people when they buy dictionaries, the two things they need to look up are they need to see if the word fuck is entered into the dictionary. And then they need to take a look at a word like go or do and see how extensive it is. Because those are the two, if you can adequately track and define a word as complex as go, that's a sign of one type of excellence. And if a dictionary enters fuck, then that tells you that they're actually tracking as much of the language as possible. And some dictionaries don't. So Yeah, I just love taboo words because I think they tell us so much about culture. And, because they're a flashpoint for culture, the sociolinguistics of swearing just fascinates me. Even though I'm not a linguist, from the outside looking in, seeing things like, how are women who swear perceived? How are Black people who swear perceived? How are, white men who are members of Congress swearing at their colleagues perceived? Like, all of these things really fascinate me, and it's all around taboo. Who gets to use taboo and who doesn't get to use taboo.
This is probably too philosophical, but I'm wondering. Okay, swearing doesn't get the credit it deserves for being creative. Mm-hmm. It's just called vulgar.
Yeah.
But what if people start giving it the credit it deserves and then it's not vulgar anymore? Is it still swearing?
Yeah, so this is the thing this is so interesting because I think this sort of touches on the word damn, right? Or we could even talk about the word ass, which is, I think, sort of a similar trajectory, but slightly like a parallel trajectory. So damn started out as possibly one of the most inflammatory swear words that existed. And it was an actual swear. You were condemning a person eternally to hell. Like, you don't get any harsher than that. And over the years, over the centuries, it just, it sort of sat in one spot. It didn't become any more offensive. It really didn't become any less offensive, really, until the 1800s. And then you start seeing it inching down more and more, and we start actually sort of replacing it with swears that tend to be scatological or sexual. And so it just kind of inches down. And now so few people think of it as a swear word. It doesn't get bleeped out on radio. It doesn't get bleeped out on TV. So there is this weird, all language changes. This is why there are people like me who record those changes. And you can't definitively look at any taboo word and say, this will never be acceptable. Because A, you don't know what the future's going to bring. And B, we have evidence of swear words that have suddenly ameliorated to the point where, they're like, whatever. Like, they might be shocking if your 2 or 3 year old said them to you. And it, right. And it wouldn't be shocking like, you are in timeout forever. It would just be like, oh, don't say that. That's right. Not a good word to say.
Right.
So yeah, but there will always be taboo words. Because we like taboo things. Like, I don't know. I just don't think that we'd ever give up taboo.
So I think this is a perfect point to bring up what I think is a perfect tweet. And this is by you. And let me talk about, so thinking about amelioration of words and just kind of trajectory of words, I want to talk about reclamation of pussy. Great episode, obviously. I loved all the episodes. I binged it, all of it in one night. Let me just read your tweet to you. So, okay, so you're retweeting a story where, I don't even want to talk about the coup, but, America's having some trouble. And we have
mildly, just a little bit.
We have a president and a vice president, and the president called the vice president a pussy. And so you retweet an article about this, and you say, absolutely outrageous that T called Pence a pussy, as Pence clearly lacks both warmth and depth. And it's beautiful. I love it. It's perfect. And this is also mentioned in the episode, a History of Swearing episode about pussy, where it's like, oh, why is pussy associated with weak when it's so strong?
Right.
Yeah. And Carrie has often said this. Carrie, you've said it multiple times on our podcast, I think.
Probably. Sounds like something I would say.
Yeah. Can we talk about what it means for some words to be a slur for some people to say, but at the same time are being reclaimed by others?
Yeah, totally. So when we talk about, first we should talk about what linguistic reclamation is for people that don't know what that is. So linguistic reclamation is a process by which a group of people who are often called a slur or are often denigrated with certain swears decide to strip the power of that word by reclaiming it as their own, reclaiming it as an identity. So in my book, I have a chapter on the word bitch, which is sort of unevenly reclaimed. Some women have reclaimed bitch as sort of, look, if you're going to call us domineering, that's just a sign of women being strong. And so a bitch is a strong, take no prisoners kind of woman. And that reclamation is uneven. And linguistic reclamation often is uneven. It is because it assumes that the targeted group, the people who are the recipients of these slurs, all have the same feelings about the severity of that slur, about when it's appropriate to use and not appropriate to use. So pussy is one of those words that's undergoing reclamation. And what's really interesting about pussy is that it's the reclamation of it is happening by women who are taking it as sort of a sign of like, this is my strength, this is, the pussy is powerful, pussy power. But the main slur of pussy sort of has two branches of meaning, right? So when you're using pussy of women, it's usually to objectify them as sex objects, sexual partners, kind of like it has the same tone as like a piece of ass or, it's very objectifying. When it's used of men, it's used to call them weak, effeminate, inefficient. So the thing that's interesting is the reclamation of pussy is happening by women, but they are objecting to the slur as it's applied to men, not necessarily as it's applied to women, which is a weird pattern of reclamation, honestly. Usually the pattern is you call me a slur, and I take that immediate meaning, the thing applied to me, and I claim it as an identity, I make it an in-group word, and now it's removed the sting of it. This is a reclamation of the whole word, not just one particular use of the word, which is really fascinating to me because when we talk about linguistic reclamation, the idea is that it has to originate really with the primary group that it's targeted with. But at the same time, when men are called pussies, they're being compared to women's genitalia. And so how do they reclaim that? Because it's not, right? Even their uses of pussy to denigrate women as just a sex object, right? It's kind of a mess. So it's interesting to me that women are reclaiming the male slur and really kind of, saying, look, pussy is powerful. The idea that pussy is weak is offensive, but not saying like, stop calling men pussies, right? Like, it's reclaiming it as a female identity.
Thinking about the presidency that we just survived or about to survive, at least some of us, the full circleness of pussy, because right before the election, we get this videotape of Trump saying, grab him by the pussy.
You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab him by the pussy.
And then there was a reclamation of this, like, pussy grabs back and the pussy hats and stuff.
Right.
So is that an example of reclaiming the genitalia part of it, not the, calling men weak kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. And I think what it is it's a reclamation of, so in that original use, grab them by the pussy, that sort of pulls on the earlier use of, women just as sex objects, right? Like, they have no identity apart from what they can provide sexually. And so that particular reclamation with the Women's March and the pussy hats and everything else is really sort of a reclamation and a re-embodiment, right? Like, grab 'em by the pussy refers to specific women who have a whole body. And this is my whole body, and I am marching against you with my whole body, not just my pussy. So it's not, I would say it's a reclamation, but it's not a direct refutation. It's just a way of reseating it like, hey, this weird metonymy that's happened where, like, women are only referred to by their genitalia is wrong. And so we are fixing that. When we talk about linguistic reclamation, I say it's uneven. And it's also, part of why it's uneven is because it involves people, and it's often situated within a particular social context, too. So the reclamation of pussy has a very particular social context now, right? That in the Trump era has taken on new meaning. I think of WAP too, right? Like we've got, so now we've got, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion singing WAP, Wet Ass Pussy, and that's shocking because it is a reclamation of the sexual nature of the pussy, right? As opposed to saying, nope, we're more than pussies. It's saying, nope, my pussy gets an entire song. We're going to talk about it. But that's a specific context too. Like WAP sits in a specific context and not in, and part of why it shocks is when it's taken outside of that context. Well, now, right? Like now we have all these other contextual, slurs that sort of center around the word pussy, and now what are we going to do with that?
Every time I think about this song, I always think about, unfortunately, Ben Shapiro's response to it, and he couldn't even say wet ass pussy. He could only say wet ass pee.
Wet ass pee.
And it makes me
wet
laugh
ass P word
every time.
Oh, God. I know.
He manages to suck out all of the sex from that song. Like, the best, like...
It's amazing. I mean, he could work as an MPAA censor, because I think he really does completely flatten any kind of allure that any 100%. Of these words have. Yeah.
Just him walking into the room sucks everyone dry.
Oh, yeah, it's just like, oh, Lord. Oh, he is the moist towelette of censorship.
Ben Shapiro, the moist towelette. Nice.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
We almost started talking about it before we started recording. But what was the filming like? So where were you filmed? I think Megan asked if it was at your place, so we'll start there, I guess.
So no, they, because of COVID protocols, the filming, so I have nothing to compare this to. So realize that when I say all of these things with authority, I'm just talking out of my ass here. But because of COVID protocols, the filming was all done in isolation. So I didn't meet anyone else. I talked to the producers and the writing group via Zoom. And that was about it. So they rented an Airbnb that was big enough that would accommodate everybody within sort of a certain square footage so that we could be safe COVID-wise. So yeah, I showed up to a rented apartment and then noticed that the shirt I had brought to wear, the only fancy shirt I own, matched the background. That made me feel very fancy.
It was an amazing shirt.
It's a great shirt. I'm not joking when I say it is the only fancy shirt I own at this point.
Who has fancy shirts anymore?
I
know. Come on. I know. We've all moved to soft pants and daytime pajamas.
Exactly.
That's just where we're at now.
Exactly.
So it was a little weird. I mean, I will say I had lots of fun doing the filming, but then it was very weird to be like, it's weird when you do this thing and you don't know how it fits into the broader context of what's happening.
Yeah, so what was that like, watching yourself and also the bigger context?
Or have you watched yourself?
I have watched myself. So one of my kids visited for Christmas and stayed for quite a while. And she was like, I'm going to wait to go home until after your Netflix debut. And I was like, what a weird world we live in.
Yeah,
that's even a sentence. So we all watched it together. And I've done video work before, so the watching myself wasn't too weird and listening to myself wasn't too weird. So I didn't get hung up on that. I loved it. I thought that the way that the writing team had sort of crafted the whole narrative for each word was so well done and, clearly well researched, which was super nice. Right? Like, yeah, it was, I had a lot of fun. I might even watch it again. It's so great.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely be watching it again, and I just loved it. And okay, how perfect is Nick Cage at swearing? I mean, he is so good at swearing. his scream fuck was epic.
It was. It absolutely was. I think my other favorite part was Nick Offerman giggling at his own dick joke.
Yes, it was so cute.
Like,
oh my god.
Yeah.
I was so happy. I mean, Nick Offerman's one of my favorite people that I don't know in real life. Like, he is a sweetheart, and I was so glad when he popped up the first time.
So the filming was weird but fun and great. I mean, you know, I think lots of people when this debuted, people were like, "Oh, what's Nick Cage like?" And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't get to meet him. Yeah. And then everyone's like, "Oh,
I know.
Sorry."
I mean, even without COVID, I would have been very surprised if you had gotten to meet him.
Right.
Oh yeah, same, very same.
Yeah.
They would have been like, all right, here's where all the, okay, we're just gonna do all of the talking heads over here, and you know, there's craft services over there. Yeah. So.
Yeah. How did they approach you with this?
So I think what had happened was that the showrunner had seen some videos I had done for a pop culture website called the AV Club. And I had done, so I had done some videos for them on the history of pop culture phrases. And one of them was asshat and one of them was vajayjay.
Nice.
Oh man, vajayjay. It's been so long since I've heard that. That's like
I know,
Oprah
right?
coined, right?
Yeah, my vajayjay is painin. That is it. Yes. That seems like 7 million years ago now.
Yeah, seriously.
Time is weird. So they saw that, and then the showrunner, I think, had read my book, and in my book I have a chapter on the word bitch, how bitch got defined in dictionaries, the definitions that have been left out of dictionaries and what that says about dictionary writers, sort of the history of profanity in dictionaries generally. And I think those two things, they were like, we would like to have this lady come on to talk about the acronymic etymology of fuck. And so they just approached me and said, would you be interested in this project? And I was like, oh, yes, this is my jam. I love this.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I will not stop fangirling because it was so good.
It was so fun.
It was really good.
Yeah.
I was so happy with it. I mean, not that I had any say in what happened, but I was so happy with it. How it turned out.
It could have gone so badly. I was a little worried because, you know.
Oh yeah.
Swearing is often mischaracterized. But yeah, no, they did a really good job. I really enjoyed watching Nick Cage swear and all the talking. Like so many people.
Do you have like a favorite episode? Do you think one came out particularly well?
I actually really liked the episode on pussy, and I liked the episode on fuck, because I just, fuck is a great word, and I think that they treated it with appropriate marvel and wonder. But the pussy episode, I mean, I really liked all of them. The episode on, I think it was shit, that sort of talked about the PMRC, the Parents Music Resource Center, and the use of parental advisory stickers, and Elvis Mitchell's points about how, like, it's just kind of racist because they got put mostly on rap albums. I was like, this is so great. This is stuff I didn't expect would be in, and I was so excited to sort of have it all folded in with profanity, because it made so much sense. It was great.
100%. I was like, oh my, they're doing such a good job with this. Like, they're pointing out that it's racist. This is so good. The research that went into it to make sure that these points were talked about is excellent.
Yeah, I was super excited to see it all. So, yeah.
So great when, like, pop culture actually, like, gets a stamp of approval from linguists and lexicographers. Like, how rare is that?
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of the thing that was exciting to me, too, about being involved is particularly so many of these words, I mean, I said this earlier, but so many of these words have a life that's outside of the written record. And lexicographers tend to only look at the written record because it's, supposedly immutable and you can print it out and study it. And so to be able to talk about things like, how does the word dick move through rap? Or how does the word pussy move through protest movements and through riot girl punk rock? And that kind of stuff is so exciting to me, because one of the weird things about lexicography and being a lexicographer is we know that there's language and then there's writing, and we're studying writing. And where language change actually happens is not the thing that we're looking at to document language change, right? So it's not just that we're way behind the curve on where language change is. It means that we're actually missing this whole area in where language changes. We're missing whole registers, whole dialects, whole fields of cultural study and culture, because they're not written down. And so to be able to really research all of these swear words and really, kind of dive in. Like, I had so much fun researching pussy through rap lyrics. Like, it was it was great. And that's just a thing that traditional lexicographers tend not to look at. And so it was super, super fun to do that. And also a little heartbreaking, because it felt like there's so much language that happens off the page, that happens outside of edited printed prose, and even language that is transcribed, transcriptions of broadcasts and stuff. Those aren't necessarily accurate, and that's not language either. Language is what's happening now, the conversation that's happening between two or more people in the moment. That's where language happens. And you don't get that as a lexicographer.
Would that help kind of explain why I think that so many people, when they see like an article that comes out, like, here are the new words added to a dictionary, where they're like, I've been hearing that word for so long. Why is it just now? Is that kind of what's happening?
Oh, totally. I mean, so dictionary writing is really interesting, because I think the internet's changed it a lot. Historically, when you wrote a dictionary, you were writing a printed book. And that printed book, in America at least, is a commercial product that is driven ultimately by market forces. So the idea is, we have people who will spend $28 on a dictionary, and then we backwards engineer from that. How many pages does that mean? How many pages do we need to keep for the front matter that's explanatory? How many pages for the back matter? What's the typeface? What's our margin going to be? All of this stuff gets figured out. And then as a lexicographer, when you start defining and you're adding new words or you're revising old words, what's sort of driven into your head is you have to be accurate and concise. And if you're going to enter a word into the dictionary, it really needs to be completely sort of established in the language, because it takes a lot more effort to remove a word from the dictionary than it does to put one in. So if we're going to put one in, we want to make sure it sticks around. And that means that most lexicographers who, I would say, like, there's like two generations of lexicographers, and I bridge both of them. Like, I was trained in the paper lexicography, and now I do entirely digital lexicography. So people trained in the paper sort of dead tree lexicography are used to looking at new words and going, well, sort of what's its penetration in the language? Does it have widespread use geographically and tonally? Does it have a sort of sustained use in a variety of sources? Does it have an established meaning that's not sort of still kind of wishy-washy, mashing around, like I can nail down one meaning? And that means then that the stuff that gets into the new words that get into dictionaries tend to be old. That's just how it works. When you're doing digital lexicography, like, we're not bound by space constraints now. So if I want to suddenly add WAP, let's say that WAP, becomes a slang term that refers to, I don't know, a strong woman, right? Let's just say that happens. If I want to add that in, I can. I'm not bound by, you have 2,000 pages. And, if this turns a line, then that means we have to add a new folio, and that means the dictionary will be $29 and no one will buy it. So if that's the case, then I can add whatever I want. And then the question becomes not, does it have the penetration, but broader questions like that get more into the sociolinguistics of things. Like, most of the time, internet slang particularly morphs very quickly. Do I fully understand what this means? Do I fully grasp its context? I hear a lot from people who get really upset that slang gets into the dictionary. People are going to get upset about something. Why not that? So, and, having to explain, the point of a dictionary is not, again, to say this is the English language. It's to help people who don't know what these words mean find out what these words mean. If someone is, Googling this new word WAP, let's say, and the only thing they find is Urban Dictionary, well, that might be accurate or it might not be accurate.
It's exactly what I was just thinking. Yeah. I was we don't want to have to rely on Urban Dictionary because some people get really sassy on there and lie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So what's interesting is that you've got this very weird bridge now where the words you're still entering a lot of new words. I mean, and some of this too is frankly just marketing, right? No one is going to say that I have entered a new meaning of green to the dictionary. No one cares. Right. But if I enter WAP, that would be super, that's marketing gold. Or if I enter something, I'm trying to think of something that's recent that is not depressing. Let's say that I'm going to enter COVIDiot, which is a word I don't like, but it's one you see around. So if I'm going to enter COVIDiot, that's not core vocabulary, but it's sexy, and so that's what gets put into press releases. Where I'm working now, Cambridge, we update our online dictionary constantly, every couple of weeks, because it's just, that's kind of the speed at which we can do things, and that's the speed at which language moves, and people need new information about it. So
it is nice that you're able to update so often now, and that you can kind of move closer with how people are moving and how language is moving.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it is nice. I mean, the thing that's the weird thing about it is, lots of people will say things like, the internet must have killed dictionaries. And you hear this sort of thing a lot. A popular search engine, whose name I won't say because they're very litigious, has killed dictionaries. And the internet is a bane and a boon to the lexicographer. It's a bane because there's so much now that we have access to. And the reality is that there are fewer and fewer and fewer lexicographers who are doing this. It's just the market, again, it's commercial in America. The market doesn't support big dictionary companies anymore. So the bane is that there's so much coming at you that then you have to choose what you're doing and what you're going to focus on. And lexicographers have always done that when they decide which sources they're going to read to enter words into their dictionary. But now, because I think we're so much more aware of different varieties of English that are in use around us all the time, and I think because we also, as professionals, you don't want to just say, there's one kind of English and it's proper English and this is what we're going to do. You really want to get as big a, cross-section of the language as possible. But we just don't have the time or the staffing to do it. So then you get stuck in this position of okay, do I enter COVIDiot or do I revise colony collapse disorder with this new scientific information? Do I add a usage note to Orwellian to explain what Orwellian means? Yeah. Or do I get back to going through the database to remove any kind of gendered language from words like spouse or husband or wife, right? There's always so much that you can do, and sometimes it really just feels kind of like between being a rock and a hard place. Doesn't matter what you choose, you're letting something else go. And that's hard.
I mean, that's life.
That's really hard. So sad.
Megan looks really sad. I'm sorry.
Well, isn't that life? You make decisions, you can't do all the things.
This is the difference between Carrie and me. Yes. Totally. It totally is.
Oh, God. We can go back to talking about fuck if that would make you happy. We can do that.
Yes, how can we placate Megan? The most important question, what is your favorite swear word?
Oh, I really do love fuck. I mean, and part of why I love it is because it's so versatile, and it's just, you can get it as just a a bear verb that has several different meanings. You can get it as a noun that has several different meanings. It's used in phrasal verbs to great effect. You can get it as, just an interjection. You can get it as an adjective. It can be, it's sort of, so broad in terms of its connotative use, right? Like, if you call someone, as a representative in Congress did to AOC, if you call someone a fucking bitch, like fucking there means something really different from like fucking A, that's awesome. Like those are different. And it's got such good phonetics too, right?
Yes,
like
you
start with the fricative, you've got that really sharp K at the end. It's a word you can yell, it's a word you can really draw out. I feel like that's what you want in a swear word. You want good variety of meaning, but also like a word that really feels good in the mouth. It has good mouthfeel.
Really good mouthfeel, yes. Not like a damp cake, which is bad
Not like
mouthfeel.
damp cake. Which is disgusting.
Disgusting mouthfeel. What was your favorite word of the year pick? What would you have chosen instead of COVID? Or was COVID your word?
COVID was not my word. I really had a hard time with all of the words of the year this year because I just felt like they were it was heavy.
Yep.
Yeah.
My personal word of the year was hard pants. Because I just felt like it embodied sort of how 2020 went. Before we did the shooting, I have a group of friends that, I'm like, help, I need to put on makeup and wear nice clothes. And they're like, okay, take me to your closet. Show me what you've got. This is what you're going to wear. And one of them was like, what are you going to do for pants? Are you going to do soft pants or hard pants? I was like, I'm on camera, so I think I have to do hard pants. And they're like, oh God, I'm sorry. Right? Like, so hard
funny.
pants. Hard pants is my word of the year for 2020.
Yeah. I like it.
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe WAP should be word of the year.
I like that. Let's do WAP instead. WAP can be word of the year. I'm down for that.
Definitely the song for the year, at least.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Fun.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And we always leave our listeners with our one final message, which is, don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole.
Definitely don't be an asshole.
Okay, so we would like to thank our 4 newest patrons for this month. We would like to thank David Higgins.
Yay!
Alex Allen.
Woo!
Jenna Jardine.
Yeah!
And Katie Connor.
Oh my goodness. Thank you everyone so much.
Thank you. And anyone else who wants to become a patron, they can go to www.patreon.com/vocalfriespod. And you get stickers and thank yous and bonus episodes depending on the level. The Vocal Fries podcast is produced by me, Carrie Gillen, for Halftone Audio. Theme music by Nick Granum. You can find us on Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at VocalFriesPod. You can email us at vocalfriespod@gmail.com, and our website is vocalfriespod.com.